Welcome to Ladies Talk Show. Thanks for being here. And you just have to know, this is Leah Richeimer, by the way. Hello, nice to meet you.
Okay, so this question is coming from the royal queen herself. No,
Okay,
I'm
very
joking.
good.
No
we
idea
did see
where
the
to come
queen.
from.
No, we didn't see the queen. But we saw the queen's house.
You
We
saw,
were at
what
the
do you
gate.
mean? You saw tons of queens.
I saw, yes, that's
Every
in
single
Hendon.
woman
That's it,
in
Hendon.
the
We were in
room was
Hendon.
a queen.
Yeah, it's in Golders Green.
Yes,
See,
wearing
the
a
brain is
that's it,
starting to work.
Golders
Golders Green.
Exactly.
And I did, but the queen did say mind your manners, so we're going to try and mind our manners. Okay,
Exactly.
go ahead with this.
So, our first question from abroad is, how do you deal with a husband who always thinks he's right? He is convinced that his opinion is the only opinion.
So we started, I saw in the great ad thing you did about this, that like, do they have the same problems as us? So
Yeah.
obviously they do.
Yeah.
Whose husbands, raise your hand if your husband is
Yes.
always has to be
It's
right.
always right.
Is, and
Right.
engaged, does your engaged guy? No,
Exactly.
Never!
No, what
He's
do you mean? When
doing
you're engaged,
It's like everything you do is right. Yeah,
Whatever you want, honey. And then when they get married, it's like, what?
Yeah,
Who are
exactly.
you?
So I thought of a really good example for this one, which is that your husband said, you want to send your daughter to an art camp because you think it'll be really good for her. It'll give her, some self-esteem, and it's a good hobby for her. And your husband thinks that it is a bad idea. He thinks it's just a regular camp where she's doing lots of different things. She's too young, whatever. Let's say she's 8. She's too young to focus in on just being an art person. Let her, explore, to have more of a broad, different of a base or whatever. Do you hear this? Oh, it's this. I'm like, what's that noise? Okay, fine. It's quiet. That in that situation, right? Let's say that you go to talk to a teacher, and you talk to your rabbi and your rebbitzin, and you go talk around the parents, and everyone agrees that it should be the art thing. So that's really the quote unquote right decision. But your husband still wants it the other way. So what do you do about this? Your husband always has to be right, and he has to push it. So should you fight for this? So one of the things that helps in this situation, it's not a foolproof thing, is to understand that in a marriage, or in a relationship, if it's about who's right and who's wrong, both of you lose. Because if he's right and he wins, you're going to be resentful and mad and annoyed, and he's going to feel, like a little bit sorry that he pushed his way so strongly, especially if she goes to the art camp and it's a total fail. On the other hand, if it's a right and wrong thing, and you say, no, I'm pushing for this art camp, and then she goes and she doesn't make friends or whatever, you'll resent him, or he'll resent you from having made the decision or taken his control away. It's a disaster. So the person who asked this question, what if my husband always thinks he's right? She has to understand that the very dynamic of the marriage is set up incorrectly. Do you mind if I throw this? That's good. Throw the bell. The cows, right. So if you have a dynamic where it's who's right and who's wrong in any relationship, but particularly with your husband, it's going to be a fail, like major fail. So what do you do instead? What do you replace it with? So if you want to get rid of something, always replace it with something else that makes it doable. Like if you're going to say, okay, I'm not eating cookies anymore, get yourself a substitute. Chew gum. Have ices and put a little orange juice in it or something. Find a substitute for whatever it is the best way to ingrain a new habit in. So what you put in place of right and wrong is thinking about shalom, peace. What's going to bring peace here? So if you find yourself in a situation where you're battling it out, boom, boom. My nails are still kind of wet, so I can't put the thing on. I just had the tips for coming back from the cruise. What can I do? What a problem. Anyway, this is getting too ridiculous. Okay, so am I making any sense?
Yes. So, you had your nails done.
No, I did it myself because they were all a mess, so I just had to do the tips.
Well, they look beautiful. Please show it to the audience.
Yes, there we go. Hello.
Oh, they match our color.
Oh, do they really? Yeah. That's very good. Okay, they also match the phones, which they can't see because we got pink phones, didn't we? Had to get pink phones, of course, right?
This is what happens when you're tired. You totally ADHD.
Total ADHD. I'm like, I'm half a cylinder here. Anyways, the point is, I hope you're at least getting this, that go for shalom. So if you're in the middle of a battle and your husband's fighting about the art camp, or your husband wants to buy this car, or your husband says, no, we need to go there. We need to be there at 2 o'clock. And you're like, the plane doesn't leave till 7 p.m. at night, whatever. And you're having a battle of who is right and who is wrong. It could be that if you polled 1 million people you would get, 700,000 people said one way and 300,000 said the other. So that is, of course, the right decision. But is there really any other, is there any reality to it? Is it real that that one way is definitely right? We know from our sources that what is right and what is wrong is not nearly as important, or not important at all, compared to what is a blessed decision. So where there's peace and harmony in the marriage, the decision will be blessed. So even if you pick the art camp or you pick the regular camp or whatever, it really, bottom line, as strong as we feel about these things, and I have opinions too, so I know sometimes I'm like, no, don't go that way, as strong as we feel about it, the truth is, when push comes to shove, it really doesn't matter which camp the kid goes to. What matters is that there's shalom in the marriage, and that's what you need to be focusing on.
Okay, so when does it border on control? Meaning, when does it border on that because he always wants to be right, he's basically controlling every aspect of the relationship because the wife is not.
She's good, isn't she?
Yeah.
Like, hello. Okay, so do we on this camera? When do I look at this camera?
Wait,
I don't even know.
Say hi, people.
Hi, people.
Hi, peoples on the south side.
I don't know how to. When
Move
I'm
it
supposed
to the
look at-
left.
Okay,
Yeah.
right here to the right. We're going to do a dance. Okay, so the question is control. So the thing about control, and this, I'm going to say this, and you're going to be, I don't know. Try this at home. This is your take-home message. Try this at home. When you try and grab control out of your husband's hand, he will try and grab it back, and that's when you have a power. Thank you. You know exactly what I'm thinking. My brain's not working. Glad yours is. Okay, so we have a power struggle back and forth. The minute you let go of control and say, I don't know, what do you think? I'm not sure what we should do here. Then he's like, well, what do you think? So that sounds like, oh yeah, my husband's not going to do that. He'll be like, oh good, you don't care? I'm going to do it my way, So you don't have to give the impression that you don't care. You could say like, well, I think this is probably the right answer. I think she should go to camp. But if you feel so strongly that it should be the other way, you might be right. And then he has to sit and question like, oh, maybe she's right about the art camp. Well, why do you think the art camp is good? And who else is going to the art camp? What friends of hers are going to the art camp or whatever it is? If you are, grabbing, he's like, but if you give him that control or let go of the control, things are going to go much better. And again, this is try this at home, but it is guaranteed to work. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. You hear that? You don't hear that word so often. Right. How do I know it's guaranteed? Is it Leah Richeimer guaranteeing it? No, it's God himself. We have many sources of this. When you go for shalom, the whole decision will be blessed, and a lot of beautiful things that are worrying you about your life, a lot of things that are troubling you about your life. When you go for shalom, Hashem won't just solve which camp to go to. He'll also fix the carburetor on your car. What's a carburetor?
Yeah, whatever it is.
The thing that goes right, exactly. Whatever it is, Hashem can fix. When there's shalom, there's blessing from pouring in through your home. Okay, good. Let's go into number 2.
Okay, if anyone, by the way, any Instagram, Facebook, telecomments people, if you have any thoughts or comments or questions, totally comment.
Fire away. We're ready.
Fire away. Okay, so number 2 is how do you treat your husband like a king if he's doing real bad? This seems to work for minor issues, but what about the big issues? So obviously she's not so happy with her husband.
Right.
I guess she don't feel like the queen in England at all.
So right. So by the way, how I do the where are all the index cards? Oh, the way I do the questions is I don't know who sent the question in. They all fill out index. Everyone has index cards on their chair. They fill it out. Every person turns in an index card folded in half, so that I won't know who actually wrote the question in, but there were like so many questions. But so this one, I don't know who the woman was, so I couldn't ask the question, which I would if she would ask me, what do you mean by bad?
Right.
My husband's being
bad,
like scary, like what bad? Is bad beating? Is it addiction? Is it abuse? Is it, so I'm taking from, I'm going to assume that it's something like he's doing bad, like addiction, or gambling or substance abuse, something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to answer that question thinking that's what she means by bad. If it's worse than that, or if it's abuse or physical abuse or something, get yourself help right away. Like, do not do not let another day pass without you connecting with somebody. There's services of these kinds of things. Call your, local rabbi or rebbitzin, or call an out-of-town one if you want an answer to it. Even email the show, and we don't really have a resource guide because the world is too big for us to be able to do that. But if you have nowhere else to turn, obviously we'd like to help you in some way. But contact somebody, get help if it's a serious problem. But let's just assume it's a pretty tough problem like addiction. So in that kind of a case, the question was, how do you still treat him like a king if he's doing that kind of thing? And you have to start out by knowing that there is nothing that is worse for a man's self-esteem than to have his wife think less of him. You hear that? Especially the soon-to-be married.
Yeah.
When a man feels like he's pressure, but this is something to really, and a muscle that needs to really be instilled. When a man, it's not like he has to feel like everything he does is wonderful and whatever. You can be honest with him and you can be straight about your feelings and how you feel about things. Not if it's attacking him personally, and not if it's if you say, oh, do we, in other words, if he takes a left turn, instead of saying, oh, why do you always take a left turn? No, that's really pretty stupid, but you can say, oh, were we meant to take a left turn there? I think we need to go somewhere else. That's fine. But for very serious things like this, if he is walking around feeling like he's a disappointment to his wife, that she thinks, oh, why did I marry you in the first place? Or, whatever. It takes away all of his motivation to improve. You hear that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Totally scary.
Yeah.
Totally scary, because if he's not motivated, things are just going to get worse. So how do you combat that? You follow Chazal, you follow what our sages have taught us, which is to treat him like a king no matter what. Whether he's losing money, whether he's being lazy about work, whether he's not on his game, or whether there are character traits he has which aren't terrific that he needs to work on. Loving him unconditionally may be extremely hard, but it's your number one way of turning things around.
Are there practical actions that you can take to treat him like a king?
Yes,
Even if you don't feel it?
Yeah, so that's a brilliant question. She said, are there practical things you can do to treat him like a king, even when you don't feel like it? And there's a whole chapter on it, Marriage Secrets, that gives a listing, and I'll give you a couple of them now. One is, don't ever sit in his chair. That we know from Chazal. That's a whole how do you translate minhag? Custom. Mm-hmm. It's a whole custom not to sit in your husband's chair. If you sit in his chair, to turn a little crooked. So you're like, really, Leah? Are you out of your mind? Like, what do you think? I'm like, are we from the Middle Ages? Is this, I've got news for you. Try this. Never let your children sit in his chair. He'll be a different human being. Not just because he'll feel like better, he'll feel like, I'm somebody, but also because you'll be training yourself and using that muscle to think of him as something special, to think of him as holy, to think of him as your rabbi, to think of him as your...
The king,
as your king,
as your king.
That's his seat. There's other things, not interrupting him. These are things to work on because, a woman told me that she had all this, tension in her neck and her head, and when she kept going to masseuses, and then she tried to patches and whatever. When she stopped interrupting her husband, that was a homework assignment, to stop interrupting her husband and stop, which was like taking control of him. When she stopped doing that, her neck pain went away. Like, right. Hello, because she was trying to control him and he wasn't controllable. And so she's just like gritting her jaw, her whatever. And she said once she got that she was going to treat him like a king and let him talk, let him make decisions, and let him choose, her neck pain went away. So this is also good for your health. So did that answer enough of your question? There's one, I should give one more example. Treat him like a king. If you can, greet him at the door. If you have 47 little kids running around or whatever it is.
47?
That's a lot. Whatever. You have a lot of kids, a lot of babies, a lot of diapers.
If you have 47 little kids, your excuse from doing anything.
Whatever. But anyway, if you have a lot of kids running, whatever, and greeting him at the door, and that's exactly the craziest time, whatever, I get it. But if you are able to, once a week, once a month, or if you're an empty nester and you can do it more often. By the way, I was asked by a couple of ladies abroad to do an empty nest thing.
Yeah,
So can you
definitely.
remind me this empty nest class, because a lot of people, what happens in the
You
marriage
actually have one.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Oh, what does it say? Empty nest. That's hysterical.
Yeah, it's like you talked about entering the next life stage and how
It was a whole class on it.
Yeah, we
It
do
was.
actually.
It
We
was
have
Oh,
a
we do.
class. Yeah,
Okay,
where somebody,
fine.
woman
Okay,
who,
fine.
yeah.
So
It was
Check
a
it
while
out.
ago.
Well,
Check it out.
we're gonna
It was a
tell
while
London
ago.
people. Yeah,
tell the
check it
London.
out.
That's what I was thinking. We'll find that London person and tell her, check
Yeah.
it out. We already have one. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
See how?
Yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
that I
Well, we
wasn't
have-
half sleep
well,
deprived when I didn't
Leah,
know that.
we have over 80 shows.
You
on
hear
there,
that?
so-
80
Yeah,
shows.
so
Okay,
you
so
can
fine, find
whatever
it.
you're looking for, you
You
can
can
find
probably
there.
find
Look
there.
on our
It's
Facebook
fantastic.
page
Okay,
and
great.
on our
So
website.
the answer to this question is, how do you treat him like the king? I think I answered. Let me just see. So at what point it would be? At what point would you go to therapy about it? I guess it depends on the individuals and what you're able to tolerate and how bad it is. So if he's doing bad things, again, if it's abuse or anything like that, immediately go. The criteria for whether you would go to therapy or not is if you can't solve it yourself. And, a lot of women don't have good communication skills to be able to get over even little hurdles. Like, he left the butter out and you're like, now I'm going to throw it away and blah, blah, blah. So they don't have a way to, we have a lot of shows on communication. There's a whole chapter on communication in the book, whatever. We covered it a lot. But if he left the butter out, how big of a battle do you want to make about the butter? Okay, it's $1, or it's $3, or it's 50 cents. I don't know how much a butter thing is in various parts of the world, but whatever the butter is that worth giving up your peaceful, having a tension-filled household for? Probably not. Throw the butter away without saying a word if you can. But there's some people who can't communicate well with their husbands, and everything becomes an issue. Everything he doesn't do their way becomes an issue. So obviously we're here to grow ourselves and to be better people, and we're trying to make that happen. But if you find that even little issues you have difficulty communicating with, get yourself some even Google it, some communication skills. If you are able to handle it, even small issues and medium issues, then maybe if the issue is small enough, you can just communicate and solve it. If you can't, and you find you've tried and nothing's worked, get a third party. It can be a therapist, it can be a Rabbi Rebbitzin, it can be a clergy person, anybody who is sort of outside of yourself. I don't know if I would take a friend, because if they're coaching between the two of you, then after it, even if you win or he wins or whatever, you're going to have this weird relationship with the third party. Whereas if it's kind of like a stranger and an independent person who you don't see at the grocery store or at the Shabbos table or at work or something like that, it's much better. So that would be the criteria. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Okay. The next one is, what do I do if I have elderly parents and my husband doesn't want to spend time with them? I am always torn between them and their needs and his needs. Oh, that's a big one, the sandwich generation.
Yikes. Okay, so here's the thing with that. And hold on a second, I just have to do this. Where's the...
Yeah!
That would be the solution.
That would be the solution. Yeah. Scream, yell, rip
Right.
your hair.
So, right. So the problem with it is that there is a black and white answer to this. This is not a shade of gray issue. And the black and white, the answer is hard. It's hard to hear and it's hard to do. And that is, no matter what, you put your husband first. So I'm going to say it again. No matter what, you put your husband first. There is no shade of gray. We have a long track record, a 3,000-year-old track record of success with this, and that is that your husband leaves his house of his parents and cleaves to you. You leave your parents' house and cleave to your husband, and the two of you are closer than even blood relatives. A husband and wife are closer than blood relatives. And I heard this wonderful lady from France said to me, I think she's from New York or Israel. I can't remember which. Oh, maybe New York, I think. Anyway, she said this unbelievable, Sarit, are you ready to this? You're sitting on the edge of your seat?
Yes, I'm
She
sitting on the edge
said,
of my seat.
okay, I learned a beautiful thought. She wrote it on her index card.
Oh, okay.
And the name of Rav Elia Lapian said that under the chuppah, under the marriage canopy, Your husband's soul is placed in the palm of your hand.
Wow.
I wished I had
We're
that. But
holding on to his soul. That's
it
crazy.
was placed in the palm of your hand,
a big
meaning you have a big
responsibility.
responsibility. I wish
Yeah.
I'd got this before I wrote the book, because that so
Yeah.
just belongs in the book. It's so
Wow.
gorgeous.
That is beautiful.
So what does that mean? It means that your responsibility and your whole, we're Ezer Kenegdo, your whole purpose in life, Ezer, helpmate opposite him. The first thing in the Torah that it says about us is that we're an Ezer Kenegdo, a helpmate opposite our husband. That's our duty. That's our responsibility. It's our husband's duty, our husband's responsibility. He can no more put his mother before you than you can put your mother before him. You guys each are more important to each other and are closer than blood relatives. That's Rabbi Gershon Bess here in Los Angeles said to me. I heard it with my own ears, that we are closer to our husbands than blood relatives. Now, what does that mean? That means if you walk into the dining room and sitting at the table is your father, your grandfather, and your great-grandfather, and you walk in with a plate of steak and broccoli and rice, okay, and you walk in and you're going to hand it to somebody, you hand it to your husband before your father, your mother, your grandmother, your grandfather, and your great-grandmother and your great-grandfather. Is that shocking? That's the halacha. Now, it could be that your husband says, oh, no, serve daddy first, serve great-grandfather first, whatever, and that would be okay. But your obligation, and the same if he walked in with a plate also, obligation would be to hand it to the spouse. So, where you say, what did she say then? She's fighting between her husband's needs and her parents' needs.
She's torn between them.
She's torn between them.
And her husband doesn't want to spend time with them even. So it's like she's really, if she's going to spend time with them, it's by herself. And she's obviously excluding her husband. So she has to decide.
So here's some practical ways that you can
Oh my God, by the way,
solve
Mickey
this.
Emmer said, my husband will love that halacha.
Wow. That's great. That's good. Okay.
Mickey, the trick of this class is you don't share this with your husband. You watch and you listen and you keep it quiet to yourself.
It's really true. Well, also, wait, can you make a note? You know what one person asked me? They said they're reading Marriage Secrets together. And they watch the show together.
Wow.
But I don't know.
No, I like
here's the thing.
Yeah, except if her husband's going to be like,
When-
in Marriage Secrets it said.
That's right.
Yeah. Why are you not doing that?
That's right. And so that
Well, it depends. Some husbands you're able to sit back.
I don't know. But the thing is, if he knows what you should be doing, where's your space to grow and to be who you want to be? Like there's a chapter that has 100 things of ways to respect your husband. So, you're supposed to take it slowly, try one, see how it fits. If that one doesn't work, try this one. So if he reads all 100, he's going to expect you to read all 100.
Right,
so
exactly. He's gonna be
I'm
like,
just
why
kind
aren't
of
you doing
queasy
number
about
99?
that. Yeah, I'm queasy.
Like,
I'm
what?
queasy. I don't know. So anyway, okay, what were we just talking about right before we talked about that? I forgot where I was. Huh?
This person said my husband does not want to spend time with my parents.
Right. Okay, so here's the thing about parents. I'm going to give some actual practical things about how to solve it. So here's the thing. First of all, try to spend as much time with your parents as you can by yourself. Like, in other words, do it during the day when your husband's at work, or do it whenever he's not around. That's when your time will be. If going to them twice a week, takes up so much of your time that you can't make your husband dinner, or you can't be there. And by the way, I get this whole thing with the dinner. Why does he make dinner? Okay, fine. You divvy up the stuff the way that works in your household. I'm not here to tell you. I have some ideas about it and some whatever. We have classes about it, right? Don't we, about housework, how to divvy up housework? So go look for those. But the issue about just standing on one foot about housework is if the woman's working, both working full-time, that's one scenario. If she's half-time or not working at all, that's a whole different scenario of how the responsibilities should be divvied up. But every husband and wife has to have a bulletproof plan of how that looks, so that there's not day-to-day conflict about that kind of stuff, which there will be, but at least you'll have a good plan in place. But in any case, with this issue, however it is, if spending 2 days a week with your parents or whatever it is takes away from your shalom bayis, then you have to cut it down to 1 day a week. This is not a joke. So, again, that might be, it might be that you increase your capacity of being able to do things. So if your parents really need you to be 2 days a week with them, so on Sundays or on Monday, you spend all day Monday cooking food, and so that you've got food for when your husband comes home Tuesday and Thursday nights when you've spent the day with your parents, or you double batch Monday night and Wednesday night so that you have dinner for the next night. Although who wants to eat 2 days in a row? I don't know. You guys have to work it out of what works. But the bottom line is, rather than saying, well, that's just the way it is, my parents need me, you have to be able to arrange your life so that you can take care of shalom bayis first. That'll help you a great deal to be able to figure it out. Now, how do you do that? What do you do with your parents? So one thing you might do, you might call your parents, instead of visiting them 2 full days a week, you call them every day and visit them once a week. Or you send your mother, let's say your mother likes gifts, you send her every Friday a huge bouquet of flowers. Right? For the rest of her life. You just say, Mom, I'm not able to spend as much time with you because my husband, needs me at home. But I'm giving you these flowers because I love you so much, and just so you know, deep down in your heart, I really want to be doing that. I need to take care of shalom bayis. And if your parents give you a hard time about it, they're incorrect to do so. But if they do, tell them, look, I didn't make up the Torah. I didn't make up God's laws. It's not me. This is what I've been told. And I just took a class on it, and I heard that I've been doing it wrong all these years. I had a woman, she came up to me, and she said her husband had just come out of the hospital, and, and her parents really wanted to see him and spend time with him, so she invited them to stay with them for Shabbos. And her husband they're driving home from the hospital, and her husband looked at her like,
are you crazy? Exactly.
Are you out of your mind?
Right. I don't want to be socializing.
I need to be resting, and I don't want to have to get out of bed if I don't want to get bed. You bring me cholent in my bed, whatever. Like, no way. And she said, I can't call them. What am I going to do? What am I going to say to them? They're going to be so hurt. They're going to be whatever. And he he didn't even answer because he was just so crushed that I was willing to do that. And she said, so I bolstered myself, and I called my parents, and I told them, sorry, my husband's just, not up to it. And they were like stone cold, and they got off the phone. And I know they were mad, but it wasn't really mad. It was hurt. They were so deeply hurt by this. And I've felt guilty for the last 10 years since that happened, because now both my parents are gone. And she said, from what you're saying, she came up to me after the class. She said, from what you're saying,
she did the right thing.
I did the right thing.
Yeah.
I said, you did the right thing.
Yeah.
That's it. She goes, oh my gosh, I felt guilty. I thought I was going to pay for that after 120. I was going to get upstairs and whatever. And I was like, no, that's it. So it's very, very clear. You can be as loving and wonderful to your parents as you possibly can, but not at your husband's expense.
What do you do if your husband puts his parents first?
Ooh.
Oh, good one.
Good
the
question.
husband puts the parents
The
first.
husband puts the parents first. Okay, I'll get to that question in a second.
Ladies, your in-laws.
That's your
who you
in-laws,
hate.
right? God forbid. We have to be very careful here, because one time, remember?
Okay, by the way, coming from me, who I have the best in-laws and I love them to pieces, I could totally say
right. Okay, fine.
Because I love my mother-in-law, my father-in-law.
So cute. Yeah, so
love you,
good.
Nana,
And that's
Ima,
okay. So
love
good.
you.
Okay. But also, I wanted to cover.
Send them that clip.
Yeah, that part.
Show
Hold on
them
a second.
part, yeah.
Wait. But before I get to that question, no, it's okay. That was totally fine. I just want to give. I had thought of some other points, and I wanted to say them because. I'm looking at you first. Okay, try to come up with a compromise. Okay, visit them during the day. Call them when he's not around. Send them gifts and cards, and call them more often, but only when it doesn't impinge on your relationship with him. Try to do things behind the scenes to improve whatever's caused. She had said in her question, she didn't want to be with. He didn't want to be with them.
Exactly.
It wasn't just he was bothered that she was with them. Put their needs first. He didn't want to be with them. So whatever that is, try and work on that. Is it because the parents criticize him? So sit down with your mom and say, Mom, I think part of the problem is that every time we're with you, you're criticizing him. Mm-hmm. Try and work behind the scenes in a way that could make that better. So that's one thing you could do. Figure out if there are things that you're doing that making it worse, like not defending your husband if they're mean to him. If they're mean to him and saying something means that, please don't talk to my husband that way. That's totally appropriate and warranted and needed and desperately, and it's fine. Is that chutzpahdik? Perhaps, but whatever they're doing to cause him pain, you have to defend him. And that, if your parents are doing things like that are hard or harsh or mean or cruel or anything like that, you have perfect right to defend your husband. In fact, you're obligated to defend him And what? Wait a minute, Leah. What it says, you need to honor your father and mother, not if they're doing the wrong thing. As much, if your parent comes to you and says, oh, here, eat some milk and meat together, or they tell you something to do that is against the Torah, you are obligated to not listen to your parents. So how do how can you justify that? It says honor your mother and father. It's part of the 10 Commandments. Are you like, really? Absolutely. In the case where they're doing something like that. So if they're putting your husband down, that's the same as, and you comply with it, it's the same as them saying eat milk and meat and you eating milk and meat. Something to think about. Okay, try to limit. One of the things, if you're going to visit them and it's just like it drags and whatever, and then they say this mean thing or that happens or whatever it is that's not working in the relationship, try to limit to 45 minutes. If you are there for a short period of time, anyone can kind of deal with that. And a way to do that is to maybe make dinner plans with friends at 7 o'clock and then tell mom and dad, hi, we're going to be stopping by around 6. So that means to get to the restaurant, you have to leave at 6:30 or 6:45 or something like that, to guarantee that it's always a short visit and that at the end they're not saying, oh, stay longer, stay longer. Or you might sit down with your parents and have a long conversation with them and say, listen, it's very hard. You guys, you may or may not have told them why he doesn't want to spend as much time with them, but you could even just say, my husband's so busy with work and it's so stressful and I don't want to stress him more, so we'd like to come visit, but it's got to be short. And please, at the end of the call, at the end of the visit, don't say, please stay longer. That'll just make it harder for us and make it more likely that we will do it less often. But if we get in and out of here in a half an hour or in and out of here in an hour, whatever the capacity you think your husband would have, 45 minutes sounds about right to me, but vary it at your discretion. But if you were to show up and to, say, the more we can keep to that, the more often we can visit, that might solve the problem. And lastly, I wanted to say that a conversation with your husband saying, listen, all these years I've been pushing you and struggling with you, and there's been this thing about my relationship with the parents, and I realized for the last 20 years you've been right and I've been wrong, and I feel awful about that. Is there a way I can make it up to you? And is there, what can I do? And I'm sorry, and by the way, I'm no longer going to be on the, take phone calls during dinner when my parents call. I'm going to tell them, I'm going to sit down with my mom. Is there anything else besides doing that you'd like me to do? Make it up to him, because it means 20 years you've been doing the wrong thing. And that's probably why the lady yelled at me, because we went on this whole tangent. And she probably felt guilty of what I said. Anyway, who knows? Whatever. I'm babbling. Okay, so now to your question regarding what if it's the husband who puts his parents first. So if you have, as I said, there's scales of communication. Some people are bad at communication. Some people are great people at communication. Some people have a lot of experience in it. So if you're bad at it, you need a third party. If you're really good at communication, then you need to sit down and say, I just learned that a wife has to put her husband first, and a husband has to put her husband first before anybody, including parents. So can we figure out a solutions and brainstorm ideas of how we're going to make it so that you put me first before your parents. And you got to figure out a way to say it. Really brainstorm about it, and maybe make notes to yourself before you even broach with your husband. Make notes about, oh well, if I say this, he'll probably say that. That's going to go bad. Oh, figure out maybe some pitfalls that could happen in that conversation so that it can go well. If you realize it's not going to go well, or you're afraid that, or it happens and it didn't go well, you might have to bring in a third party. And it could be, if let's say you're close with his brother and sister-in-law, and you pull the sister-in-law and say, he always puts the parents ahead. I notice your husband doesn't do it. Can you have his brother talk to him about not putting, that he needs to put me first, something like that. I'm getting a little convoluted, but I'm just saying, be creative, brainstorm, think of something you can do that might get the information to him without you wagging your finger at him or forcing him to do something. But he does need to do it because it's incorrect what he's doing. And I do have a woman whose husband always put his parents first, and she was angry with him, and then both parents died, and she was still carrying that anger. That anger, of course. That anger to her, to him. So what helped her get over it is realizing he thought, at the time, he thought he was doing the right thing. He didn't know. He saw this big 10 Commandments, woo, honor your father and mother, and he thought he was doing the right thing. It wasn't that he was maliciously trying to hurt his wife. So there's a bunch of forgiveness there instead that helped her get over it. So have a lot of compassion for him not knowing and compassion for yourself for not knowing, but that's the answer, black and white, no shade of gray. Let's go to the next question.
Yeah, we actually, by the way, I was trying to look it up. Episode 63 is all about this topic. We covered it in full when we had someone who called in very upset that she's torn between her parents. And there's an entire episode in our Facebook files and our website. So check it out.
Episode number 6 for teleconference, and then the title is?
Episode 63. Help my mother. Because it's coming off my phone, I can't see the rest of it, but it starts with help my mother. But it says episode 63 on it.
Okay,
it says help my mother something. Probably my mother is
even
interfering with her marriage.
The Facebook is also 63?
Yeah.
And teleconference
episode 63, I believe so, yes. It's all
You guys are on your game.
Yeah.
What about on the website?
Same. They'll see the same title throughout. Wherever you
Do
look,
I have
you
the
will
best
find
team
it.
ever?
So
Best team ever.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Okay.
Yeah.
And has boundaries.
Oh,
yay!
See, I couldn't open it. I'm sitting there.
Help,
going,
my mother has boundaries. Oh, not help my mother. Help my mother
Help!
has boundaries.
Help! My mother has boundary issues.
issues.
And you can say my mother-in-law has boundary issues.
Yeah,
Whatever
it's the same
you want.
thing. Okay,
and
good.
by the way, for the because I put it on our Facebook already, but for the Instagram people, for the show on empty nesters and feeling lonely, it's episode 48 called "Feeling Lonely in Marriage."
Oh, that's so sad. Oh,
so
wow. I remember
we have a
that,
whole
actually.
show on that too.
Okay,
So
last
check it
question.
out.
We have time for one
More question,
Okay,
and it's last one.
Okay.
Does making my husband my top priority mean that I must let him make some decisions regarding child raising and chinuch that I disagree with?
Oh,
so this
wow.
is kind of similar to your husband, his opinion being the right opinion, but at the same time, this is now specific to child raising, meaning he has a different opinion when it comes to child raising or anything that has to do with the children, and she disagrees with it.
So
So
say that, does my husband...
does she have to let her husband be the top priority, even if it comes to decisions regarding their kids that she disagrees with? She feels whatever decision he's making in their child rearing is terrible.
This wasn't on my list, so I get
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. We'll go there. I'm standing on one foot.
Yeah.
I'll do this.
Number 4.
So,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Usually I don't have the answers to the questions.
I know.
Today I did because they wrote them and then I had time
but you
on
know
the
what?
airplane.
It's literally tied to that first one of like, what if your husband wants to send the girl to art and you don't?
Oh, yeah?
It's sort of tied to that. But in this one, and I was actually going to bring it up, and then I saw, it's here already.
Okay.
Was to say that it's great to allow your husband to have his way and to say, for peace, I'm going to let
Right.
his
Oh, but what
opinion
if it's
be.
about
But
raising
what
the
happens
kids?
if it's about your children where you know what he's about to do or what he's about to, the way he's disciplining them or what he's about to do to the child is going to be, in your mind, very detrimental for the long term of the child.
Fantastic
Yeah.
question. Is
Yeah.
this good?
Yeah.
We
So
got
it's-
great
it's-
show
yeah,
here.
so it's
Okay,
really
this is
tied in 'cause
awesome.
it's so emotionally charged.
So emotionally charged. So here's the thing. This is the question when a situation like that, and actually there's steam coming out of our ears, or your ear, because you're so upset about how he's handling things. We have such black and white, crystal clear ideas of how we should raise our children and what at any given point is the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do in terms of raising our children. And because we're mothers and we're so in tune with what they're feeling like, we are absolutely black and white positive that the way we think it should go is the way it should go. So here's my question for you. And this is going to be very obvious. If it were the case that we were right about every way a child should be raised, why would God have given us a husband to raise them with?
That's right. I'm still asking that question. So feel free to answer.
But right? Like, why would God have done that? He could have just okay, ladies, you go, and he whatever. Why would the father, first of all, and then why would he give the father a feeling like, no, he knows the right way to raise them? So.
God obviously knows something that
He
we
knows
don't.
something we don't. And that is that we've covered harshness a bunch, and it's really valuable here, which is that a woman can softly and can feel it and whatever, and that she's met, and then a husband comes along and he's harsh in the same situation. The kid, spilled the milk over, and the wife realized he's got a little bit of low self-esteem. He's going to feel he had a hard day. He's going to feel bad about himself. If you make a big fuss over the spilled milk, spilled milk is a bad example because it's bad to do anyhow. But let's just say,
but a husband could get upset over that.
So the wife wants to be all mushy and I'll help you clean it and get a towel and we'll do it together, whatever, And the father's like, clean it up. Right. And the woman is bristling, like the hairs on the back of her neck are, whatever.
Right. Like, he's ruining my child. My child is going to need therapy for the rest of his life.
Right.
Yeah, and it's all my husband's fault.
And it's all my husband's fault. It's exactly right. Stay tuned until next week.
By the way, this is an entire show because I always say this, and I don't mean to say it in like a bad way, but I always say I would never walk into my husband's business and start like looking around and be like, oh, that employee needs to do that, and why are you having him do that? And start telling his employees what to do. And when he is sort of, in my mind, disciplining, and I've been in the house all day, and I'm the one seeing all the dynamics, it's like, just leave it to me. I'm the boss in this domain. Right. So it's a very hard to fine line to like allow them that space.
We're going to go into the subtleties of it, but I've got some really, really good news for you. This is awesome.
We're waiting.
Edge of seat. Strap your seatbelt on. All you need to do in that exact moment is to ask the question, what is going to bring shalom between me and my husband? Because the answer of whether the kid gets screamed at about the milk or whether he gets coddled about spilling the milk, either one of those makes almost no difference compared to the shalom in the house at the moment. So if you can manage in that moment, your husband's being harsh, and now I have news for you. When you are correcting your husband and bristling because he's doing it wrong, you're ruining the kid. He's gonna. You ever have a thing like when someone says, "Well, that wasn't right," and you're like, "Yes, it was. Yes, it was." You just want to push your point more and prove. Like, it's funny when these two ladies were really mean to me at the thing. So I was lying in bed, because I knew I was going to see them the next morning at breakfast. That's the problem with a cruise. No,
you can't. They don't go home.
Right. So I knew I was going to see them, and I planned in my head everything I was going to say to them about whatever. And my husband's like, no. Yeah. All they're going to do is get more defensive about why their opinion why their wrong opinion. My husband did say that their wrong opinion is even a good husband is even more correct and more accurate. And let me tell you something else, Leah. Also, you also said this and this that proves that you are a bad and wrong and horrible person. Whatever it was.
And that really is what happens.
That's
when
what
you push your husband into like taking away his authority.
That's right. He would. So he's like, no, he needs to know when he spills the milk, and he's going to get even stronger and stronger in his way that he thinks it's right. Whereas if you say and you ask, what's going to bring shalom here? Okay, let me be on page with my husband. We're yelling at the kid for the milk. Okay, that's where we're going with this. Okay, and zip your lip. Bring out the duct tape, zip your lip. But you have to do it carefully, because if you do it in a way that your kid knows that you really don't agree with what your husband is doing, it's sending mixed messages. It's also making a kid feel like he's causing machlokes, argument between his parents. He's separating them. He feels a sense of power and a sense of terror with that. When a child has that, there's two emotions that a kid gets. I'm not an expert in this, but just from life experience, that there's two emotions that come right up for a kid when he realizes that he's the go-between between the parents. One is a feeling of power, a surge of power, which some kids, might like or whatever, but also a sense of terror about the future, because there's no there's no unity, no stability, no unity with the parents. It's not a good thing. It's not good, no matter how you slice it. And you don't need to be an expert to tell that. You would tell that to me. So that's not good. But there's all kinds of weirdness that goes on if the mother's trying to coddle him and the father's harsh, and there's this weird dynamic that goes on in the house, and the other kids feel it, and then they like are learning how to navigate life. Everyone's just trying to survive, hopefully in a happy way. But it really teaches the kids very scary and not good things. On the other hand, if you let your husband scream his head off and kind of abuse the kid, that's not good. So if he's like, why did you spill milk? You're so lazy. You're such a klutz. I can't believe what an idiot you are. Whatever. That's not good. I'm not sure I would stop it in the moment. If he was raised his hand to hit, of course. But in the moment, you could just keep quiet. You can look down and whatever. And then afterwards, you need to talk to him. And if he's not listening, you need to get therapy. He needs therapy, and often the best way to get a guy to therapy is to go with him. So it's kind of annoying because he whatever. Maybe you need help with therapy also. Maybe you need to learn how. He's got an anger issue, and you exacerbate it when someone gets angry, and you're like, "Why are you so mad?" "I'm not mad." Whatever. So there are things that ratchet up anger, and you might be doing some of those. So going to therapy with that would help you when he starts raising up and getting heated. The therapist might tell you, when he does that, walk out of the room. Or when he does that, tell him, I hear, maybe we should talk about it later. They'll give you some tools and techniques of how to, whatever ratchet and diffuse the situation and bring it down. So that it could definitely be work. But in terms of, your standard, why'd you spill the milk, and, the normal sort of, not ideal, but harshness, that you need to just support him on. And, later you might say, by the way, you might have been a little harsh about the milk. You might want to go, when you're doing the homework with him tonight, as if he does the homework. But whatever, when you see him later, can you bring him chocolate bar home from work or whatever, something, so that he gets it, that there's ramifications to that kind of, it's not like, he can get away
like a free for all,
like a free for all, right? Exactly. You're so good.
No,
you're helping me today. My brain's like
you're
this.
Out off a cruise. I'm off 2 weeks of not doing so much. So my brain is working
very well. Okay,
no, but it really is true because I found even in that was a big thing in our marriage where I was constantly sort of usurping what he was saying, what my husband was saying, because I was like, no, I know what is the right thing for my kids,
the better way.
And as my kids were growing up, I really started to see how they automatically, my husband would say something and they would literally look over at me, kind of knowing, oh, either mommy's gonna, undo what he said, or what's mommy gonna say, or is mommy on board with this? And it became this like, instead
dynamic.
of us being together, we were two separate entities.
Right. It's better that you're together with the wrong decision and the wrong way of doing it than that you're not together. It's healthier for the kids. Yeah. And the other thing is about the harshness is sometimes a kid needs to, why'd you spill the milk? Maybe he was being, maybe he wasn't paying attention or whatever, and he was goofing around, you taking cups and stacking them up, and then the thing spilled or whatever, so that God did give a wife the softness, and maybe sometimes it's the other way around, but he gave two parents. We don't always know 100% what's best. We got to end here.
Yes.
But I'm really happy to see you guys all back now. We're back in the roll of things. And check out those two shows.
Yes.
What is it, number 63 and number 40?
And 48.
And
good.
48.
Okay, good job.
See, I'm a little getting better. Hopefully I'll get some sleep by next week. And we're really looking forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for being here.